All mobility is going electric. 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 3 wheels, cargo, private, marine, jet. Our next panel is with very interesting speakers bringing different perspectives of what it really takes to go electric. So, the roadmap to electrification. Please welcome Bracha Halaf, Acting Chief Scientist Ministry, National Infrastructure, Energy and Water Resources.
Good evening, all of you who kept up with us. So for those of you who follow, it's been already a tradition for me to be the moderator of the last panel of this day. So I take it as a compliment. And so I would like to ask my panel members to join me here on the stage, and we'll take it from there. Please do. So, being the chief scientist, not acting, in the Ministry of Energy, I often ask myself, how much time, or how should I divide my time between being on the balcony and being on the dance floor? Meaning, how much time should we, as regulator, spend on putting up roadmaps and master plans? And how much time should we be and dedicate to stay grounded and solve day-to-day barriers and problems? So, is it rightly doing both at the same time? Should the same people do both? And my short answer to that is yes. That's our duty. We are supposed to set the targets from the balcony as far as we can, and then get down to the dance floor, and more precisely to the battle zone in our case, and it is the way for all of those dancers to help them reach those targets that we set. So I would like to use the opportunity of having here such a great panel members with a very diverse experience, global experience, and I will just introduce them to you here today, and together I will hear with you some very thoughtful insights that will help me get to the long answer to my question. So the panel members here are Mr. Francesco Venturini. Hi. Mr. Francesco Venturini is the CEO of ENEL. Mr. Venturini joined ENEL Group in 1997, and in May 2014 he was appointed Chief Executive Officer and General Manager of ENEL Green Power. 3 years later, Mr. Venturini has been appointed Head of E-Solutions, then renamed ENEL, a new global division within the ENEL Group, which has been created to provide new digitalized products and value-added services such as energy efficiency, demand response, electric mobility, IoT, and optical fiber at both residential and C&I level. Thank you for joining us today. Mr. Chen, welcome. Mr. Chen is the Vice President of Digital Technology from BYTON, and he is recognized leader in security, network management, and system administration. His security expertise includes end-to-end digital and physical investigations, advanced layered security architectures, compliance, risk mitigation methodologies, and product security. Mr. Chen comes to BYTON from Tesla and Apple, where he was a leader responsible for global product security programs. Thank you for joining us. So, to the most left, we have Andreas Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer, okay, is the head of eMobility activities at E.ON Group. Right? So Dr. Andreas started his career in eMobility for the Stadtwerk Aachen AG already in 2008, and in 2010 has been appointed to be a member of the German National Platform for Electric Mobility. Between 2010 and 2012, he was managing director of Smart Lab GmbH, which is a joint venture of municipal utilities providing solution for e-mobility. Later, he became the founding CEO of the cross-industry joint venture Habject. Dr. Andreas joined E.ON in 2017 and is currently responsible for all e-mobility activities across E.ON Group. And last but not least, and we are honored to have you with us today, Matthew Baldwin, which is the Deputy Director General of the European Commission Directorate General for Mobility and Transport. Matthew Baldwin is the Director General of DG Move, with responsibilities for transport modes, land, road and rail, waterborne, including port policy and aviation. He's held this post since July 2016, but he was previously head of the cabinet of the Commissioner Hill from 2014 to 16, and has also served in the cabinet of the former president. So, finally, we're getting to our panel questions, which we spent some time thinking about. So I would like to start with you, Matthew. And we'll like to ask you, we're talking about roadmaps. So from the regulator point of view, what's the importance of having a roadmap?
Well, thank you very much. And I like the introduction you gave and describing us as dancers, because bureaucrats are fantastically boring people. And so to be described for once in my life as a dancer in this business is very, very flattering. And thank you. Roadmaps are essential because they relate to targets. And targets, I hope I don't need to tell this audience, are vital, particularly if we look at the big targets. We are setting ourselves globally, most of us adhering to them, on carbon emissions. And it's a highly complex business, but I hope that we don't end up with multiple sets of roadmaps to meet those targets. I don't want a roadmap for regulators and bureaucrats, and a roadmap for businesses, and a roadmap for everyone else. Because all the issues are multifaceted. They are all scientific / technical / technological. They're all political, societal, regulatory, and by the way, they're also all commercial. So can we please, brothers on this panel, have one roadmap to meet these vital targets? The targets, again, I hope are very, very clear and self-evident. Carbon emissions from transport now represent 1/4 of total emissions and are growing. They will be, in the European Union, the largest single contributor to climate change. I hope you would agree that the European Union is taking its responsibilities extremely seriously on this. We are currently negotiating with our Council, with our Parliament, on global CO2 reduction targets for car manufacturers, both for cars and trucks. By 2030, we will have targets, when it comes out of the sausage machine, somewhere between 30 and 40%. Plus incentive mechanisms for zero and low emission vehicles. We need to be ambitious, but we need to be flexible. I want to use the dreaded word ecosystem for how we need to set this thing up. We need an ecosystem approach to include a strong recharging infrastructure, to include price transparency, price comparison policies. We need to be interoperable, a great European word, which makes us effectively a lab for global policies, because we need policies that work in all parts of the world. And finally, we need to take account of other sectors. The EU ETS, emissions trading system, covers power, and they are shifting rapidly away from carbon-based production. So for those people who are shying away from buying an electric car because they think, well, until the electricity supply is decarbonized, what's the point? By 2030, 70% of the EU's power production will be carbon-free, so there's no reason to shy away. And we heard from the excellent presentation from Warrior a moment ago, from Mrs. Warrior, and she put it so well. When you look at what zero-emission cars can do, for all of this you get a great bonus, which is a reduction in the 400,000 premature deaths from poor air quality in our towns and cities. So there's no reason not to do this. We're getting on with it in the European Union. We've got targets, we have a roadmap. Please work with us to achieve these goals.
Thank you. Mr. Chen, do you agree? Should we have the same roadmap, or from a business point of view, you look at things a bit differently?
I think from a business point of view, it's really about building a coalition and partnership with government and other OEMs as well. Because one of the challenges is that for a business like ourselves, who we function globally, we don't want to, it's very costly to have multiple roadmaps. So I'm in agreement that it's really a partnership between government and business.
Mr. Venturini, coming from ENEL, what do you think are the main drivers that are pushing the e-mobility in the world currently?
I can follow the reasoning before, and I worked in renewables for a long time, so I can tell you that the main reasons are decarbonization, we go, and there is too much pollution in the air, and I can keep going with this for a while, but I think that we need to be honest in this room. It's the real reason why mobility is turning electric is the business behind it. I think that there were many people in the previous panels that highlighted the fact that this is one of those few $1 trillion industries which has been substantially untouched for decades. With the with digitalization and everything that's happening in the world, this is a fantastic opportunity for people who are not part of the industry to get in and get part of the pie. And that's why we're here, I guess, because as you can tell, in this panel, nobody's really coming from the car manufacturing industry. If you think about it, just to give you a number, FCA, which is the Fiat Chrysler group, which is not exactly, when you're talking about e-mobility, one of those companies that embraced e-mobility as, at the very beginning. They went on saying that the new investment plan for the next 3-4 years is going to be a plan that will have about 9 billion euros of investments in electric mobility. Well, the utility I work for only is planning to invest about 1 billion euros in the next 4 years. So, it's money pouring from all over, trying to get a piece of the pie, and there have been countries that probably understood this a little bit sooner than others. I'm talking about China, for example. Invested in the industry heavily, and now it's just who runs the faster to get down and get the biggest piece of the pie. So I'm sorry if I'm not. I'm a bit cynical in this, but I think it's a great opportunity for business, and I think that the people in this room are mostly here to get that.
Okay, so Andreas, we know that master plans and roadmaps are all about making things more confident for the long term. But how important is bringing reliability into market from your eyes?
Yeah, so as Francesco already said, it's about business. And we really have to know that the targets that is set will be the one that we also want to reach, and that will not be reduced later on. It could be higher, that's always great, if you do the business decision to go into something, to go on the dance floor, actually. And also in talking about that, it's the best place to be is the dance floor and not the balcony. And what I've seen in the past 10 years is that with the funding schemes that have been set up on the EU level and also on the governmental level in Germany, for instance, it was like the regulator coming into the dance floor, or as you pointed out, the ecosystem. And if we all join into this ecosystem, it's about creating a better tomorrow together. And it's ecosystems competing, the fuel, the petrol-driven ecosystem competing from the customer perspective, actually, against the one of electric mobility. And when I go back 10 years ago, it was only China already doing electric mobilities with scooters, which we see here on the roads every day, actually. And it's amazing, you know, to see that we really have electric cars out there. But also that the governments, that the regulation is now following a road that we develop together, that we identify together through funded schemes, of course, which are flexible enough to have the target, a goal to go to, but also to pave the way together on this road. And that's what it's, from my perspective, about. It's getting on the dance floor together, creating the better tomorrow in sense of having the best value for our citizens, for ourselves, in sense of having a sustainable life that we can create. And there, the car industry, the energy industry, the ICT are coming together, creating this world, and then making it better and better. So it's not only the roadmap. It's a roadmap that changes, but the target that has to be set. And that's what we can do together today to have the better tomorrow.
Okay. Mr. Chen, do you, I mean, we've been talking about this road and this have a long-term vision, and the question is, in this road there must be checkpoints, right? And I'm guessing checkpoints from regulator point of view and business point of view should be a bit different. Do you have in your business checkpoints that you put together?
I think as a business we do have checkpoints, but one of the points I want to bring up is that as it relates to a roadmap, oftentimes these checkpoints are driven by innovation. So the innovation I come from Silicon Valley, which is a tech hub very much like Tel-Aviv is, and so for us it's about being agile. So those checkpoints need to be agile enough where they can move forward or backwards and change. And so we do need checkpoints, but they need to be versatile checkpoints that can move as needed to meet the innovation, especially when you develop technologies we develop constantly.
Matthew, do you think that those are the same checkpoints, I mean, that you are considering?
Well, they might be, they might not be. I do take the point that it's got to work for business. I want to say to Mr. Venturini, I mean, I don't think it's cynical that you want to make money out of this business. I think that's fantastic. We need to be making money out of climate change. The idea that you guys are going to do stuff for free is a beautiful notion, but it doesn't work with reality. So I have no problem with that at all. In fact, that's the beauty of the emissions trading system. Of course, in transport we don't have, that's not included in the ETS. That's the beauty of it. It's about bringing something we have to do for the planet to the market. And that's why it's been wholly successful. Look, on this checkpoint issue, we do need some flexibility. Just to give you an example for that, we're not mandating in the European Union the number of zero or low emission vehicles that need to be bought. We're saying, car manufacturers, you need to achieve 30, 35, 40, we'll see how that comes out. You need to achieve that percentage reduction. If you do that through making fantastic changes in internal combustion engines, that's great. If you do it through fuel cells, fantastic. If you do it through electrical vehicles, that's superb. We are going to do some incentive mechanisms for the electric vehicles because I think that's a tough industry to get flying. But, you know, the checkpoints are essential and they do need, I take your point about that flexibility.
Okay, so we've talked about the role of the government, but Andreas, given your vast experience with the municipalities, what do you think is the role of cities and local government in making e-mobility an essential part of our day-to-day life?
So actually, as my life in electric mobility started in a city called Aachen, Aix-la-Chapelle, a real European city actually, all was started together with the city. And we have a great example also from our own business as E.ON. We have the city of Copenhagen, who did a decision to go for sustainable mobility. We just provided a kind of infrastructure backbone with electric charging infrastructure, but actually it was the city providing the regulations surrounding it to have these parking spaces for electric cars, and they attracted car sharing companies, and not just one. They started with one with 200 cars, was Drive Now, starting on our infrastructure. But then others saw that there is a business, and later on Today we have over 950 of e-cars just in a sharing mode in this city where we have a special regulation. So if the city starts, things start to move on, and customers see that electric mobility is not a dream, that it is far away. They start using it. And then together with companies like Six, we started leasing programs where we gave all possibilities to use the charging infrastructure, to use also digital services to know where there is a charger, that you can use it. And then providing electric mobility together in this ecosystem of a city. What I wanted to say is, from my perspective, electric mobility doesn't start on the global level. It starts really in the heart of a city with decisions that are taken by individuals. We all have the chance to start electric mobility today, and there are cities in which this happens, and these cities are really attractive also to citizens who want to be there, who want to create new things, like in San Francisco, like here in Tel-Aviv also. You see, we can change it. We are part of this future, and we are the ones driving it. It's not something that big companies just do. Everyone, Francesco, you, we are developing this future together as one human mankind. And I always go back to this one thing that we say in the European Union. It's united by diversity. There are different approaches to this new kind of smart mobility, of green mobility. And we all have to work together in creating that. And keep in mind, it's not within the ecosystem we have our competition. This will come later. It's within the ecosystems that coexist, that are not so sustainable. So let's start together to create this and work together, share the data, share technology, bring these things together, create solutions. And then it's something where I've always a picture of a tarte tartine that is today here. Really lovely French stuff. But I prefer the Schwarzwälder Kirsch, the big cake that we then share later on. Everybody takes the part that he deserves, and we all have much more fun, much more value, and a better tomorrow.
Francesco, we've heard in the last presentation that was given that the electric vehicle can be regarded as a battery and wheels. So any plans do you have with this regard?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we invested a lot of money in eMobility starting about 3 years ago. We bought a company called eMotorworks in San Francisco, which has an advanced software exactly to do that. Essentially connects cars to the electric system and uses the batteries as an asset to stabilize the grid. This whole thing comes from our experience in renewables. As maybe some of you know, Enel Power is the leading company in that space. It's probably going to install something like 4 gigawatts of new installed capacity around the world this year. So it's a huge amount of power that every year Enel Power goes and builds around the world. If you look at how renewables work, I mean, substantially they have a problem, which is if there is no sun, if there is no rain, there is no wind, eventually they don't work very well. And in that case, you need other technology to fill the gap. Now it's old technology. We believe that more and more in the future, at least a big chunk of that would be substituted by using electric vehicles, which are again vehicles, batteries on 4 wheels. It's not something that it's in pilot stage. It's actually in commercial stage already in California and in Italy, and we are expanding the commercial phase in other countries. Wherever you have a regulator, let's go back to the regulators, who allow the demand side of the market to participate to the energy market. So when you have demand response and everything attached to it, you can already use the electric cars to participate into that market and make money, which again goes back to the fact that at the end we all need to live and make our life out of it. Yes.
Would you like to add to this? Yes.
Yeah, so I want to build on the point that Francesco brought up about the battery, using battery for storage. And one point that I'll bring up is that although we're talking about guidelines and for electric vehicles, the other part of it is that we need to look at today, electric vehicles create innovation. It feeds innovation. It's a gateway to other types of innovation around battery storage, connectivity, security. It's an endless platform. It's a platform.
I completely agree with that. We've developed in Europe a batteries action plan precisely to try to make sure that we're not caught short in the European Union as these developments of battery technology take place. And there's going to be another big drop, I hope, confidently predicted to me last time is in Silicon Valley, at least in battery prices, which is going to be essential. I also very much want to support what Andreas said about cities. This is really the core of where we're seeing a lot of the most progressive, radical, in the sense of transport planning policies we're seeing globally. And you cited a great example, which is Copenhagen. And often we think of Copenhagen as the place where everyone's riding a bicycle, and it's true. It's the highest percentage of bike commuting in terms of penetration by statistics, but it's also 33% of people are still coming in from outside in their cars. Now, Copenhagen has set a target of carbon neutrality by 2025, so they have no alternative but to embrace the ZLEF concept, and I'm delighted to see that they're doing it.
Okay, well, we're getting to the point where, us regulators, sometimes are recalled as being a bit risk-averse, not to say paranoid. So I would like to ask you, please frighten us and tell us what do you think can be the worst-case scenario in this roadmap to electrification? Do you have something which one of you can...
I want to try this one. That's a lot of fun. I mean, having to discuss with regulators every day. So I think that the main problem is that regulation is getting more and more complicated. The problem is you cannot just look at the energy sector anymore and then look at the car manufacturing sector on a separate basis, having a completely different expertise and so on. Now, all these big, humongous industries, because are not very many, and they're so rich, I mean, we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars industries, they're the ones under attack. And more and more technology is developed, more and more software is developed, and so on. For a regulator, I mean, to keep track of all these changes is extremely difficult. And we see it. We, especially as a utility, I mean, you were saying, something that should frighten you. I mean, what frightened us is the fact that as being part of the utility industry, somebody's going to come from a room like this one and come up with something that is going to destroy a lot of value in those assets where we have been investing in the past years. Where we see the big issue is the fact that since the regulator is not able to keep track of everything that's happening, the regulator will not be able in the future to regulate. And we see it. I mean, look at Bird, look at Uber, and so on. I mean, Uber, for example, they have attacked one of the most regulated businesses in the world, public transportation. And I mean, they substantially changed the whole taxi drivers. Even worse. I mean, that's it's unthinkable in Europe. Look at how Bird has essentially conquered part of Tel Aviv in what, 1 year, 2 years. The problem is that when this happens, then it's very difficult for a regulator to come up with rules once a company like this one has already conquered the market. Because now you need to go back and rebuild everything. So I think that what, as a business, we are frightened of is the fact that, again, somebody comes up, builds a business out of it. There is no regulation because it's the time to market for regulation is unfortunately slow. And we get stuck with, a new company that takes it all. is a question for you. And then now, regulators, what do you do?
Let's start with scaring everyone here around. So, Andreas, maybe you can share, put some optimistic side of.
I was optimistic.
And just give us an example of what you see as some good joint strategy building between regulators and businesses.
So actually, I already pointed out a little bit the city of Copenhagen as a local regulator who enabled something that couldn't have happened if they were not open enough to let it happen. This is one of the examples which excited me really to see also this city changing, but also see the role of a company like E.ON to be a facilitator in that, in providing its knowledge in energy infrastructures, combining it with the mobility sector and ICT capabilities. So in sense of giving the data on the infrastructure to the car companies, the drive nows, the car2goes, so that they can implement real-time data on charging infrastructure into their cars, and on the other hand, retrieving it back. And this all provided on a local area. What we also have seen was the national platform of electric mobility in Germany, where Ms. Merkel brought together all different stakeholders in this market, including the government, to create this ecosystem, to listen and learn and provide a funded scheme to test new things, a kind of a hub for new mobility, and to learn fast, to fail fast, of course, in some areas also, but there was something left out of that, and that's what we now build our business on. The knowledge, the experience, and the human capital that was provided through these things, the connections, the networks that we have that enable today to create new business models that combine mobility, energy sector, and to provide these solutions to cities, because cities can set targets, they can set a framework to do something, but they need someone to help them to create it. And that's also what we as a company need. We need hardware suppliers, we need car companies providing the vehicles, we need the regulator to provide a framework, we need data protocols to deliver the data in the right frame very fast, to be in a modular, layered network together. And if we create this, the future is quite easy. We can adapt. We don't foresee how future will be. We have our targets as described to reduce CO2, to have a better tomorrow, to have a better life for the inhabitants of cities. But we do not know how we get there. But if we adapt it, if the business models are adaptive to that, life is easy.
So, Chen, if we're talking about technologies, so please tell us and spread some optimism on all of us. And tell us what new possibility we get with EVs, and especially with developing and building an EV electric vehicle from zero.
Okay, so the great part about electrification is that it's a platform with very little legacy. And that allows you to bring the compute into the wheel. It becomes the next device. It's a feature of devices. I think one of the challenges, since this topic is about regulation, is how I see is, going back to the worst case scenario, is that you don't regulate, or you don't regulate fast enough, as we talked about earlier, as Francesco talked about earlier, is that, we, as a technologist, we will innovate, we will keep innovating, and we won't let regulation stop us. We want to work with regulators to help get those rules in place, but it's oftentimes we move too quickly and then we look back. So I think it's critical that we continue to build that bond with our regulators and build those regulations together.
May I jump in? I think that's a perfect cue, actually, because I know, as a bureaucrat, I've thought about this in terms of worst case scenarios. And let's not forget, underlying all of this, there is one gigantic worst case scenario, which we missed the 1.5 or we missed the 2-degree increased prevention mechanisms. I'm actually pretty confident we will get there, precisely because of the things we've heard on this panel, which is the commercial pressures, the market are taking us there. Forget the geopolitics and people mouthing off about not acting in relation to the Paris climate agreement. the commercial pressures will take us there. So I'm worried about two more prosaic things. Firstly, that we'll miss the chance, exactly as you said, to develop global standards with interoperability. And again, the EU can be a lab for that, working with our close friends and neighbours like Israel to make sure that what we agree works everywhere, what we agree works cross-frontier. So I'm also reasonably relaxed about that. I'm worried about a prosaic small thing, that when we start changing the paradigms for AV or EV, we don't change everything at the same time. AV and EV are linked by more than just one consonant. The next generation of things we produce that work in cities has got to be green, it's got to be safe, as well as connected and autonomous. And it would be really dumb if in 2050 we look back and we say, how did we end up with this green traffic jam? How did we end up with our vulnerable road users in our cities? And don't forget, 90% of the fatalities and serious injuries in Swedish cities are caused by cars to vulnerable road users. You're safe if you drive around a city. If you're in a car, you're less safe if you're outside it. How dumb will it be if the vulnerable road users are being mowed down by green robot taxis? So, and this is, it brings me, I think, to the last point. We've got to see this mobility thing as a system. And it's a system driven by public-private partnership, which pulls together innovation, investment, and regulation in one same breath. One can't get left behind. We've got to work together.
Hey, thank you. So we came to the closure of our panel. For those of you who are interested, I would ask you to come here tomorrow at 12 and hear our Director General, Mr. Udi Adiri, telling about the Ministry of Energy targets for 2030, especially for the transport sector. So, finally, I want to thank all of you, my panelists here, for all the great insights that you brought me, and to you for staying and keeping us with us. And for all of us, I just want to wish us all a very safe and enjoyable journey on a road to electrification.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all of you for joining us for this wonderful day. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Those of you who are planning to continue to the gala dinner at the Hilton, please gather at the lobby of the Habima Theatre, and a shuttle will take you to the Hilton at 5:20. Thank you very much, and hope to see you all tomorrow.